Tax cuts just don't hit like they used to. That seems to be the message coming from some Republicans as they search for effective messaging heading into midterm elections. Joining me to discuss is Emily Brooks, staff writer here at The Hill and author of the Movement newsletter, which covers the influences and debates shaping politics on the right. Hey, Emily. So tax cuts have been an animating principle for Republicans going back to the Reagan era. Talk about these voices now saying that's not going to cut it in the midterms.
Well, one of the points I found most interesting was last week, a conservative organizer, Scott Presler, who has millions of followers, was on Capitol Hill last week advocating for the SAVE Act, a GOP voting rights bill that would strengthen voter requirements. And in his pitch to Republicans, says be aggressive on this. He had a comment that said, if you think that you're going to be able to run on milquetoast tax cuts and win in the midterms, that's not going to be enough. And so characterizing those tax cuts in the one big beautiful bill, that GOP mega bill that President Trump signed into law last year, which made tax cuts from his 2017 bill permanent, added new tax cuts on tips, overtime, Social Security, many other things. Characterizing that as milquetoast was really going against the Republican midterm messaging, which is saying that this is a great piece of legislation. It's going to impact so many people. People will feel the effects before the midterms, but it's really a sign that those tax cut priorities that have long dominated Republican politics and the conservative movement are losing their punch a little bit with the conservative activist base.
You do have some traditional Republicans defending a policy of tax cuts, Grover Norquist and the Tax Protection Alliance. You have both of them quoted in your newsletter. In their view, what are the skeptics of tax cuts missing?
Well, Grover Norquist, and he is, president of Americans for Tax Reform, really the biggest tax cut evangelist for many, many decades. And he was saying, maybe that point is a little bit right in the sense of you can't win only on tax cuts. Other issues are important too. But he was very clear that he thinks that the tax cut issue is central to Republican messaging and Republican holding the majority, winning the majority, keeping the majority. And, was saying don't take that for granted. But it's not only that, the questions about whether the GOP tax bill was enough, but there are also a lot of generational pushes and frustrations that are bubbling up as Republicans pursue tax cuts, do things like lower tax cuts for seniors and promote that. And you're getting some of these more populist activists in the younger generation saying, what is this boomer communism? And benefiting the older generation instead of the younger generation. And so that is bubbling up as well. Grover Norquist's response to that was basically that he thinks all tax cuts are good and even the bad ones are good, and you should just keep pushing for as many as you can get.
Yeah, he made that argument in a little bit more colorful terms. People can subscribe to your newsletter to go check out what I'm talking about there. But that argument that there's no such thing as a bad tax cut, that's what some conservatives, I think, especially people on the more populist-leaning side, younger conservatives, are taking issue with. Steve Bannon has actually called for raising taxes on upper earners. And then you mentioned a little bit, but the idea of cutting taxes for seniors, for boat owners, have been really ridiculed by some conservatives online. What do you make of that split in the philosophy among conservatives?
Well, I think this gets to the core of what is conservatism now. Is it just about fiscal conservatism and pursuing policies that tax cut advocates will say will lead to economic growth and benefit everybody? That's always been the argument behind tax cuts. Or, is it the more populist upstart people who are saying it's really important now to have policies that benefit and drive and steer society to encourage people to act in certain ways, encourage family formation, encourage marriages to stay together. The Heritage Foundation put out a very big policy paper recently that included a lot of tax proposals to encourage family formation and married parents. So that I think is bubbling up. There's, also, of course, that generational resentment there. The older generation is, of course, the most likely to participate in elections. And so some people see this a little bit cynically, like politicians are trying to buy the votes of senior citizens. But David Williams, the president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, another one of those free market organizations, told me that the proof is going to be in the pudding, that younger generations will feel the benefits of tax cuts too. And maybe the narrative and frustrations of this will start to change a little bit if the Republicans are right, that people will start to feel the benefits of these tax cuts and get bigger filings come tax season and people start getting those returns back.
What do you think it means for the midterm elections if Republicans can't agree that championing tax cuts is a winning issue for them? And do you think there are other issues that may actually fill that void?
Well, that is the big debate. I mean, right now, the question is what else can Republicans do at this point to try and win over voters, win over the public, win over those swing district voters who maybe don't like a lot of what Trump is doing, but maybe like some of his economic policies. One challenging thing about the tax cut bill is that it made permanent the Trump tax cuts from 2017. So it's not going to be like in 2017 where people are going to see the difference, that all people are going to see the difference in their paychecks and their withholdings immediately, because it's just an extension of those. But, that's why you do have people like Scott Presler saying we have to pass this voting bill. That is going to invigorate the Republican base and your voters to come out and vote for you in the midterm elections. You have voters talking about other issues too. So there's but the majority in Congress right now is so razor thin, and there's not a whole lot of hope right now of them being able to cobble together a major policy package or even another tax or economic package and get it to Trump's desk by the midterms. So that's why you see a lot of frustration from Republican leadership who are saying, why aren't you talking about the tax cut bill? Because that is going to be so central and core to their midterm message.